We first met on the HBO series True Blood. I was moving up from gaffing to DPing. I was nervous, and you were awesome because you really you really embraced, you know, what I was trying to do as a cinematographer. Um, you and I guess this is what we want to talk about today is that the relationship between the DP and the director and how that works on set. We have a lot of followers that are young filmmakers that I think could get a lot from this conversation. What is what is the big thing that's when you come into a show? Like that must be hard as a director, right? Like you jump from show to show. You have a new cinematographer you have to work with on every show. It's probably easier when you're a producing director, like when we worked together on True Blood and Outcast, you know, because you're there the whole time. Do you find that difficult, or can you talk about that a little bit? Just
Yeah, sure. It is difficult when you are, going from show to show, and it's starting a new relationship each time,
yeah,
with in a very short period of time. So it is definitely, it's a little bit of a challenge each time because you have to forge a relationship with the cinematographer, who to me is the most important person on that set with the director, beside the actors. And so you got to establish trust. And to
yeah,
establish trust, usually you need to take time,
yeah,
and there's not a lot of time. So no, that's the big ask when you go from show to show, which I've been fortunate and have been able to be a producer. I have more skin in the game, and I'm
yeah,
there a lot of the time. But and when I started out in TV, and you go quickly do episodic, just one episode to the next show, it's really important to find the way to establish some kind of relationship up front. Whether it's saying, look, let's just grab a lunch or a dinner before and prep. And usually, a lot of these shows have one cinematographer, not two. So you're working, and this happens all the time. A new
yeah,
director comes in and you say, I don't have time to
yeah,
get a meal. Well,
yeah,
can I meet you on the set at your lunchtime? I can usually tell right away how we're going to get along when a DP says, I'll just see you there when we start. Then I go, uh-oh. That
yeah,
immediately, I
yeah,
immediately feel like, okay, we're going to have a problem, because I need that cinematographer to say to me, I know how you feel, man, and I'm here for you, and let's meet, let's talk about the show, let's talk about us, let's get a relationship. That's what every director is looking for, and usually that's the case. It doesn't go the other way most of the time, but it's important to spend time and to establish some kind of trust and make that director of photography understand that you respect them, that you're there, their work, that you need them to be there for you because they're the cinematographer, because they got a better eye than you. Otherwise, you'd be a cinematographer.
right,
So that all of that has to happen in a really condensed, consolidated amount of time.
yeah,
Meaning, anything you can do. I usually, the minute I know something, the first person I call, other than the line producer who calls me, like the day of my hiring, I call that DP and say, when can we get together? If we can't, when can we talk? You got to help me, and all that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's the thing that I think was just so refreshing for me that I mentioned in the beginning a little bit because when we first met, you did it. It just opens up like what Howie just said, guys out there, like is very important when you're working with a new director. Like just don't blow them off. I think that's huge, great advice. I remember when we were working on True Blood, you would turn to me a lot of times, and you would say to me, Evans, we just need a little something here. We just gotta punctuate the moment. You know what I mean? And I liked when you did that because it's like, okay, what are we going to do that? I mean, of course we could do a little dolly in on him or whatever, but like I remember we were doing a scene with Anna Paquin once in the fairyland. Do you remember
Yeah,
this?
yeah,
Right? And he said, we need a little moment in there, right? And
yeah,
and I was kind of tired of doing like push-ins, to do it. Do you remember we took one of those crystals off the tree and
Very well.
bounced light off of it and went ping, and you were like,
Yeah.
man,
And it was fantastic. And it was fantastic.
And the thing is, like, if you didn't have this kind of ability to bring someone in and gain their trust, it would not let the DP have the creative freedom to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And
that's what's really cool. You know, I think.
Well, to me, directorially, that's the most kind of important message I can give any director, which is all this crew have gifts they can give you. And if you trust them and allow them to give them to you and let them co-opt the process and put skin in the game and let them help you make a better piece of work, they'll be glad to. It's when there's an attitude of commando director and I know what I'm doing and put the camera right here and let's use a 40 millimeter lens, whatever it is you know better. I think that's just a way to discourage the people you're working with. So for me, it helps me, because I need as much input as I can get, but also it motivates everybody else to feel like it's fun. It's like, I get to do my job.
Yeah. And that kind of brings me a little bit to I'm going off script here a little bit, but I think it's all right. You know, like when you're blocking a scene, you're standing there with the DP. You might be standing next to the DP. You might be standing across the room because you are closer to the actors because you need to talk to them or something. You know, but a lot of times, like I try to stand where I think the master is going to happen. Kind of what I call like the good side of the light. You know what I mean? And sometimes I'm working with directors and they don't understand that. You know what I mean? Because they get stuck in their head. Like you don't do this. You're like, well, let's put the camera where Evan's standing because it's going to be better. Because there's some directors out there that don't get that. Like if you're standing on the bad side of the light, it's going to take more time to make it look right. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if you like, and you get that, and that's super appreciated. You know, like I would love to do like a DGA seminar about like the good side of the light, the block as it relates to blocking. Like look at the windows. All you got to do is look at the windows. You know.
Yeah. Well, the nuts and bolts are what you're talking about. That's like really kind of the minutia of the work blocking. So when I block with you, it's right back at you because you're like generous. You're like, hey. You always say, I can do that, but it might be a little bit better over here and help me with the light, as opposed to some other cinematographer would go, I don't like what you got. Let's go over here. You know, there's always a relationship established it's case by case, between people working together. And that's where I, get clues. I have so much scar tissue from doing it for so long. I can get a sense right away where there's going to be an issue or not. And you're so honestly, you're very humble, Evans, but you're very open and available and generous with directors. You're like, okay, I can do whatever you want, but what about this? And you'll pitch it to them, not like we have to do it, but why don't you look at this color blue instead of the red you got over there? Because the blue is going to be better. And I'm telling you, just look at it. And then and that's how you're you're very kind. And so that's always gonna, in my opinion, that's always gonna work.
Well, cool, man. Thanks. Just keep talking, bro. That's so nice. No. You're too kind. You're too kind. You know, it's I think that's what you're saying about the building the relationship from the beginning. Like when I start a job and I don't know anything, my biggest fears, the things that make me nervous is who's the director, the pilot director, and who's the first AD.
Yeah.
Because if I don't get along with one of those two people, it's just it'll be a miserable 6 months or 7 months or whatever. You know what I mean? And like you do a lot of, legwork to build that relationship in the beginning and in prep and with the producing director.
It's critical and it leaks into the work big time. And I'll always believe that if the relationship is suffering and it's not close and there is no trust, it's going to hurt the work.
Well, there's a big difference between directors, and this is why I like working with you so much, because you empower the cinematographer to put their thing into it, which is awesome. And that's a great thing. I hope there's a bunch of directors listening to that. You know what I mean? Because that's I think really important to allow somebody's creativity to flow.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you don't, then what's the point? What's the fun of it, really? I mean, if you are telling somebody where to put the camera, what lens to do, and all of that, then you're hurting. In my opinion, you're weakening directorially the yourself and the show, because I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's David Fincher, who's known as a more of a visual director. There's a cinematographer there for a reason, and hired for a reason, because he's got a great eye, and that's why he's devoted his life to that. That's what he's wanted to do as an artist.
Right.
Use it. And if you want to look at it selfishly, it is selfish. It's like, be smart. Take advantage of that. Don't discourage it. Encourage it.
Yeah, we did a live stream about this a little bit, just about the collaboration between the gaffer and the DP, and it's very similar, because it's it is a collaborative art form, and sometimes people get too kind of caught up in their egos, and then that can stifle the work, or put up too much responsibility on yourself, and you get stressed out and things like that, because sometimes the director's going to have a better idea than sometimes my idea is not the right idea, and if I close down and be stubborn, then I'm stuck,
Right. But I mean, like you said, Evans, it is always circumstances, for instance, in any scene. And when you block that scene, if the actors, for instance, walk over to a table because they want to walk over to the table, and you say to me, it's terrible if he walks over to the table because he's not in the good light. And I say to you, yeah, but it's the only way he can make that moment happen for himself. Can we figure out a way to make that work? Evans goes, I'll figure it out. Another guy will go, you know what? I think you got to tell the actor not to do that, because I don't know how to I don't know how to light that. I don't know how to make that work. Right. That's not the way to collaborate. So right. There's 100 things going on to make a moment work, to make a scene work, and the idea is to try and satisfy everyone without diluting the what the scene's about.